Just got in off the Mohawk.
Hey, how was your therapy today? Any good?
Yeah, it was all right.
It's gonna be better Thursday.
Right.
You're going in the shower.
Geez, we're going to photograph that?
I hope not. I already got a visual.
I never got in. I never got into a shower with a therapist.
I don't think she's going in with you.
Now,
Oh.
now see, I started that, right?
All right. Hey, listen. Yeah.
Get that out of your head.
Gee, thanks.
Or tell us a good story about it.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's
No, go ahead. I'm all set. We can start anytime.
Hey, make believe I'm not here.
okay. You're not here.
Yeah, I guess just start with saying your name and your story, I guess.
What do you?
Where you were born, what house, and where you lived, where you grew up, and
Well,
You're Peter.
I'm Peter C. Hornby, and I've lived in this area since my birth. Originally was born in Scotia, New York, and moved over to Schenectady in this area in 1932, and have been here ever since. And
where
So-
was the house you grew up in?
I brought up in number 4 Washington Avenue, went to the local schools, Riverside down here, and on through the rest of Schenectady schools. Oneida for junior high, and Knott Terrace for high school. And then the war came along.
Well, what was it like growing up as a child in the stockade?
Well, they were Depression years. The 30s were Depression years. There was a lot to be desired, but you lived with what you had and what you got. And it, what else can I say?
Well, growing up right here on the river, as a child at that time, wasn't there a boathouse and things like that on the river here?
On the river here, right? Yeah, there was a boat business run by Larry Hyde at the end of Washington Avenue, by which there was a dockage area for cabin cruisers and smaller craft, and a gas dock for transits coming through to pick up fuel. And during the summer season, it was an active place, being on the canal, with a lot of canal traffic in those days, which were tows and oil barges, were called pushers, and various pleasure craft. And there was 11 miles of water between the locks on this level. They ran 2 miles up to Lock 8, 9 miles down to Lock 7, which was a permanent dam and a hydroelectric plant there that kept this level at one level all the times that it didn't change in the wintertime like the other areas were, where they would have lift gates, and the water would drop down 12, 15 feet to allow for the runoff in the spring. No.
So with pleasure crafts and things, people getting off here, was it a much busier neighborhood at the time, or did people stop and get off in the stockade? And
People would come through in pleasure craft and stop in Schenectady because they might have had business with the General Electric Company, which is real handy, or the American Locomotive Company, or various other industry we had in Schenectady. They liked it because they could walk from the end of Washington Avenue to State Street, which was only a a few blocks and get the benefit of stores, theater, restaurants, and various other things Schenectady's noted for. Right. And you had a lot of traffic there in the summertime, in the season, for people coming out of the Great Lakes maybe and heading for warmer waters and using the inland canal system. And when they got to the Hudson, they would go down and follow that system down all the way to Florida, or the Caribbean, or wherever you wanted to go in the world, really, depending what your boat was capable of.
But was it a big dock here? Like, what size boats could dock
Well,
here?
we had about 300 foot of dock there. They had a bunch of 25-foot slips for the cabin cruisers and 16-foot slips for smaller craft, which would be little runabouts or something of a smaller nature. And there was a lot of recreational use of the Mohawk in those days. And a lot of people used it with their free time and their boats, and or just passing through. You know.
Didn't your family have a boathouse to rent?
Yeah. At one time, below this property was another building, 2 buildings actually, and the city made that area a park down there, Riverside Park, and my grandfather bought that building and they moved it over in between our property on Washington Avenue and the property on Governor's Lane. And they had a canoe livery there, had 85 old town canoes in there, and used to rent canoes out in the summertime for recreational use. And it was a busy spot in weather, and a lot of people remember that area. The park ran from the railroad bridge, which was down below Ingersoll Avenue, up to Washington Avenue, which was the upper end of it. And that was all city park and used for recreational places. They had tennis courts down there. They had a swimming pool the city put in. WPA put that in, I believe.
Where was the pool? Where was the pool?
The pool was at the end of well, between Ferry and Ingersoll, in that area right there. North Street, at the end. North Street came down to the pool, actually. And it was a project that they had built by the WPA. And unfortunately, it was built at a weird size. Half the pool was a wading pool. It was just for little tots. And then the other half was a deep end with a diving board. So it required a little help from the Red Cross from time to time.
Was that when you were a kid that you would have been?
Yes,
swimming
I
in the
was.
pool, or?
I was born in 1926, so that put me in the younger age. At that age, up to the war years, I was early teenager. Yeah, and I used to enjoy recreational fishing, even going on the islands in the fall of the year for hunting, for anything from rabbits to muskrats. And there was always something to do on the river. A lot of people had recreational boats. There was a lot of aquaplaning, which was starting to become very popular. Then water skis came along, and there were a number of people that had boats around here that they used to enjoy that sport a great deal. All right, and
You used to also swim in the pool over here, didn't you?
there, at the end of Governor's Lane, in the old governor's mansion, was during the war years, was taken over by a couple of professors from Union College, Harlow and Bates, and they had accommodations for rooming for GE engineers coming in on test programs. So they get room and board and the use of the facilities there. You know, a lot of famous people came through in their younger years, and it was quite the gathering spot. It was bought from Dr. Glenn Smith, who had the property originally when I was younger, and they had a nice tennis court on the bottom level of a triple terraced property line, and they took the tennis court out and put in a pool, and the pool's been there ever since. It's about a 50-foot pool, goes from 3 foot to 9.5 feet, and it gets a lot of use from in the summertime with the local residents and weather permitting late into the season, right? You know.
Did they just opened it to the neighborhood, or?
Well, they opened up as a membership. You would pay a fee and become a member of the University Club, and you had access to the pool. And so a lot of the neighborhood people, and especially with children and stuff, had a place just they could walk to and enjoy the pool, you know. And it was maintained that way for a number of years, you know. Most people would, of a teenage variety, would remember a lot of that from that era. There's still a few around.
Go ahead if you could go.
Right.
Yeah, because that, and you're not gonna hurt the cable there.
Yeah, I've talked to you. My phone's been going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Right.
Take care. Bye, Susanna.
Okay. All right, Bob. Talk to you later.
I'll be back later.
Okay.
And how do you, when you were younger, what kind of businesses and things do you remember in the neighborhood? Different,
Businesses?
stores?
Well,
Tell me
mostly
a lot about
people-
how it's changed.
Well, mostly businesses were, if you didn't work for the Great White Father, being the GE, you would work for the Alco, which was producing its locomotives on a custom-built basis. When they had an order, they worked hard. When they completed an order, they didn't have another one to fill up, they would have to wait until they got an order. So there was a fluctuation in the employment there.
I mean, in the neighborhood, like small businesses, the different shops and things that work.
Well-
because there's no longer.
Well, the different shops here was Schenectady was in its infancy then, and they had State Street very much as you see it today, except it was filled with, all the stores were occupied with all types of stores. There were a number of theaters down there. We had the State Theater, and at Erie Boulevard and State. You had the Erie Theater, which was just off of that, in the same arcade, which was on Erie Boulevard and Liberty. And then you would go up the street, you would have the Proctor's, which was the main theater in town, and with the highest capacity. And you had the Strand Theater over on Barrett Street, which was a smaller one that had come up through the years. You had the Plaza Theater, which was the newest built theater up on the top of State Street Hill, which was very decorative and very impressive to the new theater crowd. And most all were run by the Fabian Theater chain. Some of the smaller ones were run by independents, which gradually disappeared off the scene because they had them in different neighborhoods around town, whether in Woodlawn or Bellevue or Central Van Dyken Avenue. They had a number of individual theaters that drew their own crowds and such. You had one over in Scotia, which is just across the pond here, and you would have traffic from all directions. And you had all your suburbs, Rotterdam, Woodlawn, Niskayuna. You had what they used to call Goose Hill, which was up in the Vanket Avenue section, which has a history of going back to early Schenectady. So many farmers had geese up there, I guess it acquired the name. And what else can I say?
Well, right here in the neighborhood, wasn't there a lot? I know there was a store down at the end of North Street. Was there?
Ingersoll Avenue had a store, a little store down there that a couple of people ran out of their homes, more or less, and into that type of shop. You had the store on North Street, little store there was run there. There was at the Statue of the Indian, which is where Front Street, Ferry Street, and Green Street combined where the statue is. There were a couple of stores there, and there was a shoe shop, or a mending shop there too. And then on the other corner was an old family run by the Garens, a little home-type store that had a barber shop on the corner. And so we had a barber shop and a shoe repair and several stores of various nature, and would buy various things and candy and such, and all within walking distance, until you had to walk a little further to get up on the Erie Boulevard section before you got into some other ones.
Didn't your grandparents own one of the shops?
Downtown has altered it a lot.
No, I mean, but one of the shops by the Indian, wasn't it your grandparents that ran that?
What was run by the Garens there at one time, I understand my grandmother said that they once had that place. And I never did dig up much more information on that, but that it was just a little store made out of necessity for the local people, you know, and such. Actually, in that building where we had the canoes down there, they had a front that faced the park, and then as a venture as a kid one summer, I actually sold soda pop and ice cream down there just for a season. So it gave me a little responsibility, got to know who the local people were and such, and this was kind of a venture there to make more friends.
What did you charge?
Beg pardon?
What did you charge for the ice cream and soda?
Well, in those days you get a bottle of, the R&G bottling company, they sold a bottle of soda pop for a nickel. As time went on, of course, prices would increase, but everything was priced according. This was during the 30s, which was the Depression years. I think an average salary had to be around $25 a week for a family, and you can imagine living on $25 a week. You could probably make one purchase in a store. Right.
Now, your grandmother was
My grandmother was a physician. She was one of the first women doctors in the state of New York, and she studied in New York under boy,
Elizabeth.
Blackwell. That's the number. Blackwell was one of the early ones that we could probably find a lot of history on, and she studied there. Then my grandfather came along, and they got together and they moved up to Schenectady.
And did she have a practice in the stockade here?
She had a practice at 1 Washington Avenue. That was her home, first home, and they gradually acquired 4 houses across the end of the street over to Governor's Lane
Did she
over
have
the
many
years.
patients in the neighborhood come to the house? Or?
Well, with a woman doctor, it was a little tricky up in good old Schenectady. Men didn't want to come to a women doctor, and so it was kind of a limited practice. So my grandfather came from over from England. He left home at the age of 16 and traveled around the world, got aboard sailing ships, and he got involved with the British Army, and he got into places wherever they sailed. And he spent some time in India, which was a British possession at the time, and had many experiences which are interesting. But he traveled around the world for a number of years, and then did settle in Schenectady. And then he got down. He got down to New York, and he was running Flower Hospital. He was, which was well known in New York City in those days, yeah. And gradually moved upstate and became a property owner and an inventor of things. He used to invent the various medical devices that he tried. A number of them got patented, and it just became a what do what you want, I guess.
Did he have a practice in the neighborhood?
No, he didn't have a practice. No, he was a landowner. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Your
and
family owned pretty much this whole.
well, little by little, they acquired the property that became available, and some people would borrow money from him, and they couldn't pay him back, and they'd have to sell their property to pay the debt, and in most cases, if he could help out, he would take over the property for a certain amount and utilize it for renting purposes. Yeah, yeah.
What was your grandfather's name?
That was Charles Haycock Hornby. He was
Do you know
like he was. They called him Doc, but he was like a British. He was like a pharmacist. He was in that category back in those days, you know. And
And do you know what year it was that he settled here on Washington Street?
That's a good question. What year he settled? Now, that had to go back into the. That had to go back in the early 20s or more. Yeah, it's a good thing. I better look that up.
So your childhood was spent at 1 Washington, right?
My what?
Your childhood was spent at 1.
My childhood was sent, and it's property around here. They had acquired it, and this house we're in now in 21 was built in 1911, by my grandmother and grandfather because she wanted a nice new place, So they lived in it for a while, and then they moved around to various other buildings there, living in one and breaking up these bigger old homes into rental property, which gave them income, yeah, of course, yeah, from those ventures, yeah. Everybody had to do what they could during the Depression years, and it they got along pretty great as far as that goes, yeah.
How do you think the neighborhood changed over the years after the Depression?
Well, of course, all the big homes got sold off. During the war years, there was a big demand for property here due to the war years with the General Electric and the Alco. And people were coming in for jobs, and they needed places to stay. So they took a lot of these private homes and divided them up into rentable units, whether they were rooms or apartments or whatever. Right.
And the neighborhood changed a little bit because of the new type of people living here?
Well, yeah, that's true. We had all qualifications of people. GE had a lot of engineers, which came in from the Midwest and got themselves involved in whether it was the early war years for those demands or whatever. Of course, they were producing. GE was producing a jet engine for aircraft, and they were producing all kinds of miscellaneous stuff that were. What we got? Got someone out there?
Oh, go ahead, you can pass.
Well, is that Bob out there?
I don't know, that sounds like.
Oh, they're coming in.
Oh yeah, they're going. They must be going.
Well, they're going up.
I think they're
When you open that door, it'll bang into white. Okay. Yeah, they're going up the stairs.
They're going upstairs.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's some of the things we're working on upstairs.
Yeah.
Right. Now, where are we?
So, you were talking. You've told me before how at that time when there was all these single men moving into the neighborhood and.
Yeah, it's a lot of married couples too. I mean, depending on the engineer's situation at the time he took to coming to work for GE. The GE was expanding. They built the knolls down there for their type of work they did down there, and experimental stuff from anything from GE engines, which to whatever war material they could produce. Yeah. They had turbines, of course, with the big thing, and they had to build a lot of turbines because electricity was getting in bigger demand all over the world,
Yeah.
and they built some specific equipment that had to be specially built for the area it was going to. Yeah.
As far as in the neighborhood, though, I know you talked about how there was a lot of more bars and a brothel even that appeared in town. Once
Well, there was all kinds of things. A lot of eating places and a lot of stores, and a lot of union work, and everything in between. I guess they would have all types of things going on. City was prospering to a point that they had built the new city hall in 1926, and that was going up, and the politics of the area was a little different, and you had the various elements around town that had various ways of making money.
There's some stories about that
Yeah.
you told me.
Well, that's as an old canal town. When the canals were running through, there was always the people going by. Right, and take care of their necessary needs.
Tell me the name of that place again.
Which would the name of the
Blue
place?
Shutters or something?
The what?
Was it something with blue shutters or?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was the brothels around town, and the house known with the green shutters, or down on Ferry Street, which was run by a madam down there, successfully, and then in connection with some of the gambling people, which were famous for what they did, and
Yeah, no, that,
Just gonna.
that we're getting a little. They're taking something out,
Yeah.
a body maybe, getting a body out.